M1 Finance bills itself as the intelligent, seamlessly integrated platform that lets you put your money management in your hands. In this video, I'm going to put that statement to the test. Hey everyone, and welcome to FinTech. And in this video, I'm going to be reviewing M1 Finance, looking at everything from how easy it is to invest with the app, what I think about their user interface, as well as what features do they have that other investing apps don't. So leave a like and subscribe if you want to, and let's dive right into reviewing the app. So I'm going to be walking through the app on my phone, which is the phone that I usually use to record these videos. Because of that, I had to switch to my old phone, so the video quality may have dropped a little bit, so sorry about that. So once I log into M1 Finance, you can see that on the bottom of the screen, M1 Finance essentially breaks out the app into 5 different tabs. There's the Investing tab, the Spending tab, the Transfers tab, the Borrow tab, and the Research tab. Now for this video, I'm going to kind of walk through each of these tabs one by one, talk about each of the features there, show you how they work, as well as give you my opinion on them. So starting out, let's look at the Invest tab in this app. Now I think that M1 Finance actually does a pretty good job here because of the way they set up the Investing tab. Basically, they build the entire thing around the idea of pies, which represent how much of your income is invested. So for example, in my current pie, I have 50% Apple and 50% Ultra Aggressive. Ultra Aggressive is just an M1 fund, which they set up for you automatically using robo-advisors. You can see that if I dive into that specific fund, it's kind of broken up into these different areas here, and this is also how your portfolio would look if you had money invested in a bunch of individual stocks. So for this ultra aggressive fund, they basically took a bunch of different Vanguard ETFs and they proportioned them based on the risk that they calculated using their robo algorithm. Now, if I go back to the main page of the Investing tab and I click Manage Pie, I can edit this pie in order to add different items to it. So let's say I remove Apple and instead I decide to add a different fund. I can see what the different options to invest are in this tab. So you can see that I have all these different individual stocks which I could invest in. I could, for example, look up CrowdStrike and I could just invest in that stock directly right here. Or I could go into the different funds that they provide for us. Now these funds seem to be pretty much covering most of the funds that I would ever want to invest in. I usually invest in Vanguard funds when I'm doing ETFs, so it looks like those are all pretty well represented here. In addition to these existing funds which you can invest in this app, you can also go to this Expert Pies section, where they'll basically use robo-advisors to automatically proportion how they should set up your portfolio based on your age and your retirement goals. So for example, let's say that I wanted to invest in plan for retirement. And I want to pick a 2045 retirement date, and I say I want to be aggressive. So I pick this fund right here. Done. So now if I open up that 2045 aggressive portfolio, you can see that it has automatically picked all these different investments for me and put them into this pie for me automatically with the correct allocations. Now my understanding is that as each of these positions grow over time, so for example, this first slice of the pie here is 3% of the total pie. If that were to double and the rest of my portfolio stayed flat, they would automatically reallocate the extra money from that to keep the portfolio in this exact pie arrangement. This app also has quite a few other investment choices here, which is actually pretty impressive. So again, under Expert Pies, I could go to hedge fund followers. I can pick all these different hedge funds, which I could try to mirror with my own portfolio, or I could create a watch list of different stocks that I want to watch, or I can create my own customized pies, which I could switch between. This stock is pretty comprehensive in what it offers you, going all the way into, if I were to go to other strategies, I could invest in domestic growth, global growth, domestic value, or some other more niche areas if you really want to get into it. The app also has no trading fees or commissions, which granted is pretty par for the course at this point, but overall I would say that the Invest tab on this app is more powerful than the majority of other apps out there, with the limitation that it does not seem to allow you to invest in options. So the next area to look at in this app is the Spend tab. In the Spend tab, you can essentially hold cash with M1 Finance and then spend out of it like a regular checking account. Only unlike a regular checking account, if you join M1 Plus, they'll actually give you 1% cash back and 1% APY. Now obviously the only downside to that is you do have to join M1 Plus, which is fairly expensive at $125 a year, which is substantially more than Robinhood's $60 a year for Robinhood Gold. Also with this account, you can get a debit card if you want to. I don't really know why you would ever use a debit card when you can get points back on credit cards, but I guess it's a nice feature to have. Overall, I don't think I would ever use the Spend account unless I was already signed up for M1 Plus for one of the other features in the app. So next up, we have the Transfers tab, and you wouldn't think that this would be that interesting of a tab, but I was actually fairly impressed with what the functionality is here. So unlike a normal app where you can just transfer money into this account in bulk, this app will actually let you set up customized rules to let you move money. Now this could be a rule such as just moving the money on the first day of each month, or you can set it up with these smart transfer rules. Now these smart transfer rules, again, are only available if you're paying for M1 Plus, but it does look pretty useful. For example, you could set it up to automatically roll money over into an IRA automatically, or maximize your market exposure, or spend your dividends. They have all these different features which you can set up in here, which makes this actually pretty powerful compared to a lot of different investing apps out there. The only downside, again, is you have to pay that $125 a year for M1 Plus to get the smart transfers. You can still set up recurring transfers as well as one-time transfers with just the basic version of the app. So moving on from transfers, the fourth tab of this app is the borrow section. Now for me personally, this is the section of the app where things get a little bit iffy. Now right at the top of this app, you can see that they're advertising that you can borrow at one of the lowest rates of the industry at 3.5%. You gain access to borrowing from M1 automatically when your account value reaches $10,000. You don't have to sign up for anything. Additionally, if you sign up for M1 Plus, you get a 2% interest rate rather than that 3.5%. Now that beats Webull's rate of 6.99% for under $25,000 invested, and is pretty much in line with Robinhood's rate of 2.5% to 5%. That is, if you don't join M1 Plus, which will actually give you a 2% margin interest rate, which is lower than any of the other apps that I have seen. Now, while these interest rates are really good, the way that they present them to you in this app is a little bit shady to me, and I'll show you that by swiping to the next screen. They say that you can use this app to get extra buying power, and that is really the purpose of margin, to allow you to take your existing investments and use leverage to make more money on your investments than you would have otherwise. Now, while this is a risky strategy, it is a legitimate strategy that people use to make money. What's not legitimate, in my opinion, is some of the other ways they try to get you to borrow money in this app. For example, they say that you could borrow money to pay for your wedding, to start a business, to remodel your home, or to refinance student loan debt. This seems a little bit misleading to me because yes, while getting a 2% loan ordinarily would be a good way to refinance your debt, this is a very specific type of loan which is borrowing against your investment assets. Because of the requirement that you can only take out up to 35% of the value of your portfolio, if for some reason the value of your portfolio was to drop unexpectedly, maybe from a stock temporarily moving down, they have the ability to call in their margin, meaning that they can force you to sell your stocks and immediately pay off the loan. Now imagine taking out a loan to pay for your wedding, and then because you do that and your stocks trade down a little bit, you lose all that value in your investment portfolio. This makes using margin for anything besides investing extremely risky, and I think it's a little bit irresponsible to even suggest using this for anything besides investing. The other thing that this app does is market their borrowing fairly aggressively. Now you might have noticed earlier when I was on the spending page, if I go to the last page within that tab, they're advertising their borrowing feature here. If I go back into the borrowing section, you can see that as soon as you have $10,000 in your account, they automatically sign you up to borrow money, basically reducing the friction as much as possible. It's very clear to me that they're trying to push you to use margin. So now the last tab that we need to talk about is the research tab. Now I have a little bit of a split opinion on this tab. While I do like the UI and it's actually fairly easy to use, for example, if I scroll down, I can see all these different articles on different stocks that I might be investing in, general news stories about the market in general, and if I open up the menu on the upper left, I can use all these different sub-tabs within the research tab. So for example, I could look up specific stocks. So let's say I was looking into Apple. I can see here only news stories relating to Apple stock. And I can also open up a chart that shows Apple's stock price over time. Additionally, I can go to different funds and look up some information on those, or look up different expert pies like I could do in the investing tab, as well as just looking into my own pies as well as my own watch list. The biggest downside to me with this research tab is the fact that it's labeled research. This isn't really research, it's more of news. Let's say, for example, I wanted to look up what Apple's earnings reports were for the last 3 quarters. Well, I think that I would just go to the stocks tab, I would open up Apple, but if I look through here, all that's here are news stories about Apple. There's no opportunity here for me to look into their numbers. I can go to their price history, but that just talks about the stock price, and I can go to their portfolio, and on that page, I can see a link to visit their website. So if I click that link, it doesn't even take me to the investing portion of Apple's website. It just takes me to their homepage where it looks like they're trying to sell me an iPhone. While this research tab looks nice and it feels pretty nice to use, I don't think this tab is that useful for actually helping you learn new information about a company aside from what you already learned in the news. And for me personally, Google already suggests stories about the companies I invest in for me. So to summarize, the investment tab of M1 Finance is outstanding, probably the best that I've seen of any of the stock apps that I've looked at, and it caters to everybody from individual stock pickers all the way to people who just want to invest in ETFs. Additionally, M1 Finance really did their best to build out the different categories of financial tools they offer you to hopefully let you use them as a one-stop shop for everything. Unfortunately, while they do this fairly well, they're not the best in every category that they try to compete in. For example, their spending account only gives you a 1% interest rate, which you might be able to beat by putting your money in a savings account such as Yada Bank, and there are also better apps out there for doing research on companies than this one. That being said, if you actually use all of the different services that M1 Finance offers, it may be worth you signing up for an M1 Plus account, at which point you unlock a huge amount of new features which do, in my opinion, make the app worth using. If you do think you would use all the different categories that this app provides, it would probably make sense to just sign up for M1 Plus, and at that point you can just keep everything in one place for the convenience factor. Now, outside of the app's pretty good UI, as well as matching most of the features from other investing apps, really the point of differentiation for M1 Finance is its robo-advisor. By being able to automatically pick different fund allocations automatically, and M1 Finance will just handle the investing for you, this app is kind of the dream for a passive investor. Now sure, you still have to do the research and decide what types of funds you want to invest in, but the fact that M1 Finance will automatically rebalance your portfolio for you could take a lot of pressure off of you if you just want to maintain a fixed portfolio. Interestingly, not long after I first signed up for the app, I received a phone call from someone with M1 Finance asking me what I was looking for out of the app. I told her that I was mostly interested in comparing its features to apps like Robinhood and Webull, and she was quick to point out both their robo-advisor as well as how the app can help you with other areas of your finances. In general, I would say that M1 Finance is geared a little bit toward higher net worth individuals than Robinhood or Webull. For example, they have that $10,000 minimum in order to borrow money, which is higher than they're required to set by the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority, which requires you to have at least $2,500 invested in order to borrow on margin. Overall, I don't think that I personally am going to switch my accounts to M1 Finance, partially just because I'm put off a little bit by how they market their borrowing service. But if I was new to investing and I didn't already have services that I enjoy with Charles Schwab for investing or Yada Savings and Ally Bank for saving, I might very well use M1 Finance just for the convenience factor of having all those different services in one place. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments if you personally are interested in using M1 Finance. I'll include a link in the description if you want to check it out. With that said, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to leave a like, and if you don't want to miss out on any future videos, make sure to both subscribe and hit the notification bell. I'll see you next time.